Welcome to AnimeFan Narrations, Solo Leveling Episode 41.
It was practically as if one hunter had single-handedly wiped out 20 High Orcs. Moreover, she noticed 2 High Orcs that seemed to have been killed differently. One had its head torn clean off by an immense force, and the other appeared to have died from a severe blow to the skull.
Aside from these two, someone had methodically weakened the High Orcs, making it easy for the other hunters to finish them off.
Could that even be possible? Although she prided herself on her speed, Cha-hein wasn't sure she could accomplish something like this. And as far as she knew, Sun Ji-hoon's team didn't have any assassin-class hunters skilled with daggers.
Daggers?
A sudden memory flashed in her mind. The man standing outside the boss room yesterday, Sung Jinwoo, had definitely held small weapons in each hand.
Was it him?
As she reached this conclusion, Cha-hein's head snapped toward the depths of the dungeon. From somewhere deep inside, an overwhelming surge, no, a flood of magic power, unlike anything she'd ever felt, was erupting outward. Her expression darkened as the very air seemed to tremble under the weight of this force.
This is bad.
Cha-hein bit her lip and dashed toward the boss room with every ounce of speed she could muster. If this power belonged to the boss, Sun Gi-hoon's team wouldn't stand a chance.
Solo Leveling, Chapter 90.
Step forward and play.
With those words, everything began. A wave of energy, far more intense than the previous High Orc Shaman's magic, swept through the entire area. But that wasn't the only thing that changed. As Jinwoo released his magic power, his shadow beneath him expanded swiftly, spreading across the entire chamber floor like a fast-flowing pool of pitch-black ink.
Yuck? Well, what's going on?
Sun Ji-hoon's raid team saw the shadow spreading beneath their feet and panicked. How could they even describe what they were witnessing? Even the most seasoned hunters among them had neither seen nor heard of anything remotely like this. A strange fear gripped them. Lying helplessly on the floor, Sun Gi-hoon shook as he stared up at Jinwoo.
What are you planning to do?
As if responding to his silent question, once the shadow fully covered the boss room's floor, the surface of the shadow rippled, and one by one, soldiers in pitch-black armor began to emerge.
You have activated Skill, Sovereign's Territory. All stats of the shadow soldiers fighting within the summoner's shadow will increase by 50%.
A small smile tugged at Jinwoo's lips.
Perfect.
This was his new class skill, acquired upon reaching level 70 in the demon's castle. He could feel his empowered soldiers' fierce energy growing. A satisfied grin settled on his face. 50 shadow soldiers encircled Jinwoo, as if forming a protective barrier around him. The High Orc warriors, known for their courage, began to back away, one hesitant step at a time, intimidated by the overwhelming aura radiating from Jinwoo and his soldiers.
Oh, orcs are retreating?
What in the world?
The hunters, though still trembling at the surreal sight, clung to a newfound thread of hope.
Did you feel that?
Yeah.
Is this even possible?
The mage-type hunters, naturally attuned to sensing magical energy, found their hearts racing uncontrollably. The man who had come along as their porter, a supposed E-rank, was now radiating an unfathomable amount of magic power.
Wait, is this even magical energy?
It's even darker, more menacing than what the High Orc Shaman emitted.
The suffocating presence of energy that filled the boss room made it hard to breathe. Relief washed over them, knowing that this immense power belonged to an ally. In contrast, a weighty tension filled the High Orc ranks. With the Shadow Soldiers' arrival, the balance shifted from 1 against 150 to 50 against 150. But those 50 were no ordinary soldiers. No, this was a power that defied reason, beyond what numbers could represent. As if to prove this, Jinwoo was the first to launch forward. The shaman urgently screamed.
What are you waiting for? Take down that human now!
Driven by the shaman's powerful magic-infused voice, the High Orc warriors bellowed and raised their weapons. The Sovereign's Territory skill was crafted specifically for his shadow soldiers, yet even without the boosted stats, Jinwoo's strength alone was beyond extraordinary. The High Orcs cried out in agony as Jinwoo's dual daggers sliced through them, scattering severed limbs and sprays of blood in every direction. His speed was so blinding that even the top hunters could barely see his afterimages.
Yeah, it's just like watching our vice chairman.
Cha-hein was known as the Dancer. Usually composed and calm, she moved with fluid grace in battle, dispatching monsters as if she were performing a fast-paced dance. Though she found the nickname embarrassing and had discouraged its use, some hunters still called her that from time to time. Now, their so-called porter was moving with a swiftness that rivaled, no, surpassed, Cha-hein's. If her fighting style was a dance, then this man was a whirlwind. He had transformed into the eye of a storm, annihilating monsters around him. The shadow soldiers weren't far behind. The former Ice Bear leader, Tank, took a step forward, signaling the start of their assault. Iron, positioned at the front, bellowed loudly as he charged into the fray.
Iron has activated skill, Shout of Provocation. The target's resistance is too high, and the effect failed to activate.
Frustrated at his failed attempt, Iron roared with fury, then unleashed his giant hammer onto the helpless High Orcs. His blows were so devastating that one might even feel a hint of pity for the High Orcs. In contrast, Ygritte was cutting down enemies with elegant precision, his sword slicing through necks with swift efficiency. High Orcs who encountered Ygritte barely had time to register his presence before their lives ended. Each time Ygritte's sword traced an arc, another High Orc fell. Although the standard shadow soldiers struggled against individual High Orcs, their limitless stamina and near-endless regeneration allowed them to hold the line. This delay gave the magic soldiers a chance to unleash fiery torrents onto the enemies. The number of High Orcs dwindled rapidly. The shaman's pig-like cheeks shook with fury.
How dare these insolent humans?
The boss's gaze locked onto Jinwoo. It quickly decided to eliminate the human first. Those black armored soldiers were summoned by him. If he was taken down, the soldiers would vanish as well. Determined to kill Jinwoo, the shaman began chanting a spell. The shaman's lips moved rapidly as it cast the spell. The curses of slowness, blindness, debilitating fever, excruciating pain, and demonic sleep. 5 separate hexes completed in moments, then launched toward their target.
It's done.
The corners of the shaman's mouth lifted in a sinister smile. As the hexes took effect, Jinwoo sensed the abnormal surge of magic energy.
Magic, huh?
Jinwoo's eyes met the shaman's, and the orc smirked mockingly.
Too late, human.
Hexes weren't like ordinary spells, they couldn't be dodged. The moment they were cast, the victim was doomed. With this human crippled by every imaginable affliction, his fate was sealed, to be torn apart by the High Orc warriors and their weapons. It was a fitting end for a lowly human who dared to flaunt his strength. But the monster was in for a surprise. A familiar digital chime echoed in Jinwoo's ears.
An abnormal status has been detected. All abnormal statuses will be removed due to buff immunity.
A series of beeps followed in quick succession.
Hex, slow, has been dispelled. Hex, blindness has been dispelled.
All 5 hexes dissolved before they could even take hold. Jinwoo smirked at the outcome. One of the buffs he'd gained as a player protected him against such attacks.
Blessings from the Grand Sorcerer, Kandiaru.
Continuous effect, good health and long life. Grants immunity to all diseases, poisons, and debuffs. Dramatically increases recovery rate during sleep. Thanks to this, he was immune to status-altering magic, including curses.
What?
The shaman's expression twisted in horror. True to its role as a boss of an A-rank dungeon, the High Orc Shaman immediately understood that a stronger power had rendered its hexes useless.
But those were hexes.
This was impossible. To dispel hexes, one needed purification magic or the blessing of a being with power surpassing that of the hex itself.
Could there be a human shaman greater than me?
Before the shaman could ponder further, pain shot up from its foot, forcing it to scream. It looked down to see a dagger embedded deeply in its foot. It was Jinwoo's weapon, the Night Killer. The shaman lifted its gaze, its bloodshot eyes locking onto Jinwoo.
How dare a mere human?
Jinwoo calmly cut down a High Orc lunging at him, then silently mouthed a message to the shaman. Wait your turn. In other words, stop wasting time with futile efforts. The shaman's face turned a furious shade of red, like a ripened persimmon.
How dare a worthless human?
So it still has enough mind left to be angry, does it?
In an instant, Jinwoo's expression turned cold. Truthfully, he could have eliminated the shaman at the start if he'd wanted to, but he had held back. He wanted this shaman to experience the same terror it had inflicted on the hunters. However, the arrogant monster hadn't yet fully grasped fear. The creature's eyes still burned with defiance. In that case,
Let me show you something worth watching.
he would now reveal the true power of a necromancer. To the Shadow Sovereign, this battlefield was a grand feast, overflowing with plentiful offerings. From the bodies of fallen High Orcs, dark smoke began to rise, awaiting Jinwoo's command. So he called to them.
Rise up.
Shadow extraction has commenced.
With the system's notification confirming his skill's activation, eerie, death-like wails echoed from somewhere beyond. The shaman's eyes went wide with terror.
What is?
The shaman never finished its thought. Before it could, black hands emerged from the shadows beneath the corpses of the High Orcs.
Shadow extraction is a success.
Jinwoo smiled broadly. his gaze fixed with satisfaction on the fresh recruits joining his shadow army.
My warriors have become undead.
The shaman's body trembled uncontrollably. Around 50 warriors had perished so far, and roughly the same number had returned as those black-armored soldiers.
Then, those soldiers that human summoned are...
At last, the shaman realized that this strange human was not using ordinary summons. It dawned on the shaman just how badly outmatched they were. What began as a clash of 50 against 150 had shifted to an even 100 versus 100. High Orc warriors, typically fearless in battle even against stronger foes, were gripped by terror as they watched their fallen comrades rise as shadow soldiers. These High Orcs, known for their bloodthirsty nature, were now retreating in visible fear. The idea of not reaching a warrior's afterlife and instead becoming enslaved as the enemy's puppets was their ultimate nightmare. Indeed, demonstrating the shadow extraction skill had a profound effect.
It worked on the warriors, so how will it affect the shaman?
Jinwoo's gaze shifted to assess the shaman's reaction.
Ah!
His eyes lit up with satisfaction. At last he saw fear in the creature's eyes. The shaman, now visibly shaken, recalled tales of a being who could raise the dead as shadows.
Thanks for watching Solo Leveling on AnimeFan Narrations. If you enjoyed it, please like, subscribe, and hit the bell for updates. Share your thoughts in the comments. See you next time.